So back in April, the 1986 classic Aliens was finally released on 4K Blu-ray after James Cameron finally got around to doing the remaster himself along with his team. And it's safe to say that it released to a hell of a lot of controversy. A lot of YouTubers and enthusiasts weren't happy with the transfer and would probably deem it more of a revision as opposed to a remaster, and I would kind of agree with that. But he stirred the pot even more by coming out and responding to all the negative feedback that he got in a kind of childish way, to be honest, quite antagonistic, and I think he's kind of alienated, pun intended, his main fans, you know, his biggest fans of Aliens and certainly his biggest fans of movies on the Blu-ray format. So I wanted to cover Aliens and give you my thoughts on the 4K transfer, even though I'm a bit late to the party. But I think it's also really worth talking about Cameron's kind of take on it. So in this video, I'll be reviewing Aliens on 4K Blu-ray. I'll be kind of comparing it with the 2012 Blu-ray that I already had and how it kind of stacks up, whether or not you should upgrade to this or stick with that. And obviously we'll get into Cameron's comments, so stick around for that and we'll get into it in just a few moments. And then you make it look that kind of digital way, that rubs people up the wrong way, okay? And probably rightly so, because you're messing with history to an extent, you're messing with people's love and nostalgia for that movie. Thanks for sticking with us, folks. I'm Andy, your ElectricGeek, and in case you're hitting it up for the first time, I have actually already covered the other titles from James Cameron. So I've covered True Lies and The Abyss in previous 4K reviews. So of course, once you watch this, if you enjoy it, you can go back and check out my thoughts on True Lies and The Abyss also. Just before we get into the review, as I say, I'm not going to talk about Aliens itself because I think we all agree that it's an amazing film and it's an example of how to do a sequel well. It's a pillar of the kind of sci-fi horror genre, and you probably wouldn't be watching this video unless you love the film. So we're not going to waste too much time talking about the film because there's so much to cover in this. We'll be getting straight into the review just after I mention Cameron's comments themselves, so I'll kind of read them out for you here and I'll stick them on the screen. So this came about as a result of an interview he did in the run-up to the release of Aliens Romulus, and it came from The Hollywood Reporter. So you'll see on the comment there what the interviewers asked him, and I'm just going to read out for you what his response was. So he's replied by saying, "When people start reviewing your grain structure, they need to move out of mom's basement and meet somebody, right? I'm serious. I mean, are you fucking kidding me? I've got a great team that does the transfers. I do all the colour and density work. I look at every shot, every frame, and then the final transfer is done by a guy who has been with me, brackets, for years. All the Avatar films are done that way. Everything is done that way. Get a life, people. Seriously." Now, the "get a life, people, seriously" is what I stuck on the thumbnail. Hopefully it grabbed your attention. And it should, because it's quite offensive. I think he's a wee bit out of line, but we'll get into why I kind of think he's out of line and maybe the reasons for why he's responded that way. Just my humble opinions anyway. So Cameron clearly defends it and likes the transfer. So that's a good jumping off point to talk about what I think about it, right? So you can't talk about James Cameron's movies on 4K Blu-ray without mentioning the dreaded DNR, right? So if you're not familiar with it, I've covered it extensively in the True Lies one especially, the review I did for that. But DNR is digital noise reduction. Now that's a process that they have to apply to films, especially on 4K Blu-ray, because when they go back and scan the original negatives, so like the 35mm negative in the case of Aliens, the process, I'm led to believe, pulls a lot of that natural grain, that coarse grain, out of the original film print, more so than you would actually see where you're watching a really good print of the movie in a theatre. So there has to be an element of DNR. It's a kind of software that they use to remove some of the grain, but the skill in doing it, for enthusiasts anyway, like me, I'm mainly in that camp, and I know a lot of you guys are, is to do it in a way that you still retain the detail, because if you just scrub all the grain out, you lose the fine detail that was captured on 35mm. So it's not something that can be done easily, and it can be rushed, I would imagine. I've not done it myself, obviously, but even in the comment there from James Cameron, he talks about he's got a team that do it, and they do it kind of frame by frame. And there's been some fantastic examples of that over the years with the likes of like The Godfather movies, Indiana Jones, Jaws, all these films that were filmed on 35mm that were painstakingly restored and are pretty much, you know, demo kind of reference discs for older films that have been brought to the 4K Blu-ray format. James Cameron, as I mentioned in the previous review, is a progressive filmmaker, though. He's not shot a movie on film, I don't believe, since 1996, 97, when he did Titanic, which I've not seen, but I'm led to believe is also quite a good transfer. He's never going to shoot in film again. He's progressed on. He's now making, I don't know how many Avatar films, which I like the look of. They're shot digitally, they're photorealistic. He's pushed the boundaries with that. But when it comes to his movies like Aliens and True Lies and Terminator 2 also, he's decided to make those movies look digital, like they were shot today, with very little grain. That's the case with Aliens. Now, the majority of people don't like that, and I get it, because when it comes to films that were filmed like in the 80s or the 90s, in True Lies' case, people have a nostalgic love for them because the grain reminds them of the time they were filmed. It's what they've seen in the cinemas, it's what they perhaps seen on DVD and Blu-ray if it was done well. And when you take that kind of radical hard turn like Cameron does, where he thinks, no, I think ideally I would have liked it to have looked clean, and then you make it look that kind of digital way, that rubs people up the wrong way, okay? And probably rightly so, because you're messing with history to an extent. You're messing with people's love and nostalgia for that movie. The very people that are going out there and spending the hard cash and making new money, upgrading to 4K and stuff like that, they expect to see it restored truthfully and authentically. But my kind of take on that kind of revision versus remaster and making it look more modern, when it comes to sci-fi, I don't mind it as much. Like Terminator 2, Aliens, I'm not saying that they're fantastic transfers, but the digital look kind of works for me because they're sci-fi films, they're set in the future. Alright, we've maybe eclipsed the future with Terminator 2, we're past that point, but at the time it was set in the future. I know for a fact, had he had digital cinematography, digital cameras available to him when he made Terminator 2 and Aliens, that's how he'd have shot it. He's famously come out and said that he wasn't happy with the film stock that was used for Aliens back in the 80s. It was a kind of experimental film stock and it produced more grain than he would have liked. So he's gone back on record as far back as I think like the late 80s, saying he was never happy with how much grain was in Aliens. So it's no surprise to me knowing that now, why he's applied the kind of DNR and the digital look so cleanly. But it doesn't bother me too much. The good points with this transfer, in my opinion, are that it's clean as hell. Super, super clean, right? If you like that. And very detailed. So normally when DNR is applied, you get that kind of wax look, you lose the fine detail. I don't think that is as much the case with Aliens, as you maybe see some of the screenshots here. They're a bit crude. I know this video's in HD, but I've taken them to the best of my ability on my OLED TV, just to give you a kind of point of reference. Still shots, close-ups, those kind of mid-range shots, especially when the camera's not moving as much, are incredibly detailed and worth it, in my opinion. The whole kind of sequence at the end where she goes down the elevator and it's that kind of montage of her getting ready and she's getting the flamethrower and the pulse rifle combined and stuff, that's a bit of a demo sequence just for everything on this disc. It comes in HDR with Dolby Vision and of course HDR10 for those that aren't capable, and that's a great scene because it's very dynamic. There's a lot of light going on, there's the electricity from the storms, that's very evident with HDR. It kind of, the specular highlights there, it punches off the screen more so than the Blu-ray or we've ever seen it before. You've got the flashes of fire from the flamethrower whenever she kind of uses that cautiously, and all that extra detail just makes the set design fantastic. It pops. Like the set design in Aliens and Alien are fantastic, and for me I want to see it in all that detail, and you get that here. And it's futuristic. This is set, you know, hundreds of years. I think it's 100 years or something. Correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not the best on Aliens lore, but it's set well in the future anyway. So it doesn't bother me that it looks clean because grain is a product of the time. It's an analogue byproduct of filmmaking, which we grew to love and feel nostalgic for. So do I. I like to see it in films, but I can forgive it in the case of Aliens because it's a modern movie and it kind of reminds me that it was shot in the 80s. I don't want it to feel like that when I'm watching it. I want it to feel timeless to me, that it's set in the future. And sometimes I think when they make it look a bit more clean, a bit more digital, then it suspends that illusion better for me. So that's my thoughts on the DNR thing. If you're a purist, you're going to hate it, okay? And I understand why you hate it. If you want to see it as authentic as you can with a more authentic transfer with all the grain intact, you're not going to want Aliens on 4K Blu-ray. You're better off sticking with the 2012 Blu-ray that I kind of have over my shoulder here. I've got it as part of the Alien Anthology box set. It's definitely got more grain. It's kind of more what you'd expect. It looks more like something that's been filmed in the 80s, but you don't get all the specular highlight. You don't get that extra detail. You know, you don't get that kind of glisten off the kind of slime of the aliens. It doesn't showcase that beautiful kind of set design as well. So it's going to be a toss-up. You're losing some of those nice modern benefits that to me make it a bit more immersive, a bit more eye-catching over that kind of more nostalgic, grimy, kind of dark, more grungy feel that you'll get on the on the 2012 Blu-ray. I hope my thoughts are kind of justified and you can at least understand my take on it. And maybe if you are one of these people that would rather have seen it done more authentically, you'll also understand why it's polarising and why there are people out there who quite enjoy the new transfer and its cleaner look. Believe me, I understand the grain thing and all that. I get it and I like to see it. But in this case, I don't actually mind it. And I quite like James Cameron's revision of this movie. True Lies, I don't approve of it there because that film was a product of his time. It's set in the 90s, it's filmed on film, and when I watch that, I do have that nostalgia for it. I'm more familiar with True Lies actually. I watched it as a kid, more grown up, and it should have the grain because it's set in the 90s. Everything about it's 90s. It's not futuristic, so I would like to have seen it intact, and it looks a bit strange seeing it digital. Hopefully you understand that comparison to why I can have polarising views, like why I would like to have seen it in True Lies, but I don't mind it not being there in Aliens. Briefly on the tech spec, it's got a 185:1 aspect ratio, so if you're watching on a big TV or on a projector, you'll get that full screen image with no black bars. HDR, as I mentioned, is in Dolby Vision, and that's how I watched it. And it's a nice Brucey bonus. And then when we come to the audio, we get it in Dolby Atmos. Now, I wasn't overly familiar with that one. I actually got that just recently. It was still shrink wrapped from a friend, and I watched it a few months before Aliens was released back in April. And it's a decent enough DTS HD 5.1 track, but the Atmos track blows it away, and if you're Atmos capable, it's definitely the better way to listen to the movie, I think. It's a bit clearer, it's a bit louder, it's a bit more bombastic, and it encapsulates you better, because you've got, in my case, 2 height channels. I've got 2 speakers that are mounted on the ceiling that kind of feed in the atmospherics. Whenever they're out, an LV 426, especially when you've got the explosions going off and that kind of, the whirling wind and the kind of atmospherics of the planet, that kind of completely encapsulates you and immerses you in that world, as well as all the kind of horrible sounds that the aliens make and the sound of that pulse rifle going off. You want to hear that in a kind of modern format, I think. But the good thing is with the audio is that you also get, I believe, the old HD 5.1 tracks on there if you're not kind of capable with Atmos or you just prefer that track, and you also get the original Dolby Digital 4.1 track, so it would have been an original 4-track audio, I think, in the theatrical release. So if you want to watch it old school style and you don't have an Atmos set up, then you can kind of go down that route and stick that Dolby Digital 4.1 track on. A little bit on the actual release itself. It got this new artwork, which I don't think people are overly enamoured about. I think people would have rather seen the kind of traditional artwork with the alien queen on it and stuff, but I quite like it. I've got no complaints with it. It comes with a nice slipcover, and it's also got a slight bit of embossing on the 4K Blu-ray there. It's a 3-disc set with a 3rd disc dedicated purely to all the special features, which has all the legacy stuff. And what was really cool, I thought, was that it actually has the old Laserdisc stuff. I didn't have it on Laserdisc. A lot of the Laserdisc exclusive content you would think would get lost to time, but here they've actually went back and took the time to get that stuff and transfer it over onto this. So this is a very complete edition of Aliens, if you can see past the new transfer on it. It's got all the legacy features which would be on your special editions of the past, as well as the Laserdisc, DVD, so it's very complete in this one kind of neat package. You get the Blu-ray with it, and it also has both cuts of the movie, so you're getting the theatrical cut and the special edition. It also has a feature that you can jump straight to what the new stuff is, if you're interested in knowing the difference between the 2 cuts specifically. So it's loaded, it's a really good package, and there's only one feature on it that hasn't previously been committed to any physical media version of the film, and that is the inspiration and design of Aliens. Now that's a kind of 30-minute sit down with James Cameron, where he kind of talks about how he got the gig in the first place. And he talks about how he came about with the kind of extensions of the lore, the alien queen and all that. It shows you some of the original sketches that he did and how he kind of brought it to be with his production team. Quite interesting and definitely worth a watch if you're an Aliens fanatic. But it's not a new one. It came out, I think, in 2016, looking at IMDb, so you may have seen it on YouTube or somewhere else or on TV, but this is the first time it's been available as part of a physical media set along with the film. But that's my fairly extensive review of Aliens on 4K Blu-ray. Can I recommend it? Yes, but only for people with my mindset. If you're an enthusiast, don't get anywhere near this. It's just going to annoy you. If you've got a lot of nostalgia for Aliens and you love to see grain intact, if you hated True Lies, if you hated Terminator 2, don't waste your time with this, don't waste your money. Stick with your 2012 Blu-ray presentation. It's going to be the sweet spot for you guys because it's probably the best way to watch, where you're going to get as most detail as you can. You're going to get HD audio in the form of DTS 5.1, and you're still going to get a bit of grain. It's perfectly watchable, that Blu-ray. As I say, I've been comparing it and I watched it a few months before. it is a good transfer. There's no need to have this unless you maybe have an Atmos capable setup and you love HDR, you love the use of Dolby Vision, and you like that kind of digital clean look, or like me, you like to see it being revised that way for an old school sci-fi movie. So that's my thoughts on Aliens. You can let me know in the comments what you think. There'll be a link in the description. It's actually on sale just now on Amazon for $19.99. It was previously $24.99. That's the cheapest I've seen it. So if you want to help the channel out, you can jump down to that link and buy it through the link, but it is available elsewhere, of course, in HMV and Zavvi, I think, for $19.99 also. So that's all things Aliens. Now let's talk about Mr. Cameron and his somewhat offensive reply to our criticism of his transfer of Aliens. Right, so what do I think about it? First and foremost off the bat, I think it's unfair and ill thought, and it's offensive to his biggest fans and the people that take the time to review these discs. I certainly, speaking for myself, I don't review these discs to annoy anyone, to spread negativity or to punt an agenda, right? I'm just an enthusiast that's into collecting physical media, and I know there's an audience out there that like to get that kind of, or hopefully like to get that deep dive briefing on a disc. Even if they already have it, I certainly do that. I still watch guys that review discs when I already have it, because I just like to know their thoughts on it, what they think. It's just part of that community. It's where we are now. We're a niche community of enthusiasts. So I've tried to be fair to him here, and yes, I've criticised his overuse of DNR, but I'm in the camp that liked it. Especially the comment about moving out your mom's basement and meeting someone, right? That's just a personal dig at these people, right? I'm not in a basement for a start. I'm married with 2 kids and I hold down a decent job, and I've not lived with my mum and dad since I was 19, right? I'm 38 now. So that's just a lot of nonsense. I think the comment was directed mainly at Jeff Russo, who previously was of the channel Films at Home, and he's also came out with a tweet where he just reminded Mr. Cameron that he also didn't live in his mum's basement. But it's unfair, and ironically he's probably not checked, but the review that Jeff Russo did on it was actually saying to give him a break, like saying, do we really, he kind of discusses, yes, alright, it's been DNR'd and they're not the way we like them, but maybe we should get over ourselves a bit, and ultimately it's about the movie before it's about grain structure and all the rest of it. So ironically, I think that shot was kind of taken at Jeff Russo, whose review is the one he's probably watched. But as I say, that really wasn't his take on it, and he actually kind of defended the transfers somewhat, or tried to at least stem off the negativity. But yeah, the reasons I think he's went on like that, I've got a few reasons I think he's responded like that. I think he's just quite a brash guy. Anyway, I think he's known for being a no bullshitter. You don't get to the top. He's probably the most successful filmmaker of all time. Maybe you don't agree with that critically, but look at the box office. Nobody's made more money than James Cameron when it comes to getting punters in to watch his films, and I enjoy all his films. I think they're all really good, and I'll go and see, and I'll look forward to seeing Avatar 3 when it comes out also. But you don't get there unless you've got a kind of cutthroat, totally believe in yourself attitude. He's not had a reason to be criticised for a long, long time. All his films, as I say, have been massively successful. This is probably the first time in a while, I would say, that he's had kind of widespread criticism, and I don't know if he's used to dealing with it. That's maybe why he's kind of flew off the handle. But he's also spent a lot of time on it, clearly, and anyone who spends a lot of time on anything is going to be a bit upset when the masses don't like it. But that's where he's been contradictory, because he's coming out and he's having a go at me and other people that review these things for, you know, not having a life and getting my nose in about the grain structure, when in that very statement he also says that, to quote him, I look at every shot, every frame, and then the final transfer is done by a guy who's been with me for years. He says he does the colour and all the density work. So if he sat and went through every single frame meticulously, right, he's a perfectionist and he wants it to look as good as he can. He's not just done it in 2 minutes, or at least he's claiming he's not done it in 2 minutes. There's been claims about AI being used, and this is in fact a 2K upscale done entirely by AI tools. I think that's a bit propaganda and a wee bit unbelievable, but fair play to people that think that. I get why they would think it, but I don't think that's the case. I think it's just the way he wanted it to look. But you can't then come out and say that about us guys who are also enthusiastic, who are also perfectionists to an extent, that we wouldn't be buying these films and investing money in our setups. So it's a bit counterintuitive, I think, and a bit hypocritical to come out and say that, which is why I think it's ill thought. But the other reason I think he's maybe, and one that's I can definitely get on board more with, the other reason I think that he's maybe responded quite negatively and a bit fiery is because his longtime producer and friend John Landau has recently passed away, and I think that's maybe who he refers to when he talks about his team. So I'm not sure, he was obviously definitely involved in the production of his movies over the years, and he's a close friend, but I'm not sure if he was also involved with the transfer. So he's maybe in mourning a wee bit. I appreciate he's maybe still grieving that, and maybe that's the reason why he's also, it's kind of struck a nerve with him, because he maybe sees it a bit of a diss on Landau and the work that they've done. Maybe I'm making excuses for him. If anyone can, you know, if we can give anyone a bit of slack, it's probably James Cameron for, you know, how much he's entertained us over the years and all these classic films that he's given us, like Aliens. I'm not going to lose sleep over it, to be honest. I don't really care too much. It doesn't offend me, but I appreciate why it is a bit offensive and why it's a bit of a hot tatty just now, and that's why I wanted to kind of cover it, make you aware of it, and hopefully create a talking point. And if you want to discuss it in the comments, certainly I'll reply to you. I'm interested to know what you guys think, if he's offended yous, or if you think it's somewhat justified if you're a defender of the transfer. I'll just quickly mention, if you're excited like me and you're wanting to see Alien Romulus, which comes out this weekend as I'm filming this video, then please take note of the fact that I'm doing an Alien Romulus live discussion stream on Tuesday the 20th, and that'll be at 8 PM GMT time if you're watching from outside the UK. My good mate and the filmmaker in his own right, Alan, from my school days, will be joining me on that one. He's a big Alien fan, probably more than I am, and we're both making the effort to get there and see it early so that we can kind of discuss it and hopefully have a chat about it with you on the live stream. So as I say, that's Tuesday the 20th at 8 PM GMT. But if you can't wait till then and you're psyched and you just want some more Aliens franchise content, then my good mate Paul Tams, who also has his own YouTube channel, has actually done a Road to Romulus where he's kind of retrospectively reviewed every Aliens film from Alien right through to Alien Covenant. Don't think he's done the AVP films, but he's done all the kind of main Alien franchise films, and he's getting a bit of traction over there, so people are obviously enjoying them. So you can jump over there. I've linked that in the description as well. I know Paul will appreciate the love. But until next time, I've been Andy, the Electric Geek. Keep buying 4K Blu-rays and enjoying movies in the highest quality. Maybe not Aliens if you're that way inclined, but of course, keep the format going, keep the physical media fire alive, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.